Hey everyone, we are here in Casper, Wyoming with Nicole from the Children's Advocacy Project here in Casper, and we're just going to ask Nicole a few questions. Nicole, you are a forensic interviewer. Explain to everyone what that is and what that means.
Basically, I talk to children for all different purposes, but mainly for investigative purposes. And those include child sexual abuse, severe physical abuse, domestic violence, if they've been witnesses to domestic violence or homicide, things like that. So I talk to them, and like I said, it's an investigative interview, basically trying to obtain factual information as to what occurred or what they witnessed. And it is used for law enforcement and prosecution purposes.
Okay. Since we're doing our ride, child sexual abuse prevention, what percentage of the cases that you see would you say are child sexual abuse cases?
Child sexual abuse is in the high 80s, probably like 88% is what we see here.
High 80%. When you're conducting an interview, what's your main objective?
The main objective is just to obtain the facts as to what occurred. And in the child's words, we try not to put ideas or thoughts into their heads. It's up to them to explain to us what happened. So we just try to get a nice narrative, kind of from beginning to end, obtaining all of the information and what occurred and things like that.
I think as adults, most people probably don't know that much about the issue of child sexual abuse and what it may be like for kids to disclose that information. And I think a lot of times people would expect the children to be severely upset or have physical evidence. Is that true? I mean, is there always physical evidence? Are the kids always distraught, crying? I mean, how do kids react to it? I know it's different on a case-by-case basis, but
it's always different, and the disclosure process is always different. I know lots of times they say a third of kids tell right away, a third tell eventually, maybe when they're safe, when the perpetrator's no longer around, things like that, and then a third never tell. So that's, so it's always different where you are in the disclosure process. If you feel safe and that's why you told, if something else, if somebody walked in, that's going to be a whole different story if that's how it all comes about. And then, of course, medical evidence, not lots of people, very few people know that it's less than 4%.
Less than 4% show physical signs of sexual abuse.
And that's also kind of based on the disclosure, because not very many kids are going to tell right away the next day where we have the opportunity to obtain that. And lots of times the abuse isn't, physically mean or physically harming to their bodies. Lots of perpetrators groom the children, spend all that time, years doing the grooming process. They hope to usually victimize them more than once, so they're building that relationship. So it isn't a mean, hateful relationship where you might think physical harm would be done to a child.
We just interviewed Doug in Fort Collins, Colorado, and one of the questions I asked Doug, and I'm sure that you get asked this all the time, what's the hardest part of your job? I know that's tough to answer, but
I bet the hardest part is when I'm an interviewer and a counselor, so this probably is hard for me because of the dual roles that I have. But I think when in the interview, you have to be objective. So you don't get to give them a hug. You don't get to tell them it's okay. You don't, I had a little girl crying saying, my mom told me it's not my fault, it's not my fault. She told me it's not my fault. She kept saying this and telling me this story about her mom, telling her it's not her fault. And then she looks up and says, but is it my fault? And I can't say anything. And so I've had situations like that where you can just see a lot of guilt and a lot of shame that they're having, and they're letting you know, I didn't know this was wrong, I didn't know this was wrong, or he wanted me to do it, or he made me do it. As they're telling you what happened, they're really also trying to let you know that they were a victim or that they didn't know what was wrong, really trying to communicate that to you as well as just tell you what's going on. And so oftentimes you just want to say, I believe you, or, it's okay, we're going to do with counseling, we're going to do this, but you can't say that on camera. Wow.
Well, Nicole, thank you so much, and we're happy to be here.
We're thrilled to have you guys.